we get going. Oh, fantastic announcement. Right, let me share my screen and hopefully, there we go. Share. Can everybody see Fusion 360?
Oh,
Yep.
there we go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so hopefully most people should be up to where we are here. If you're not, don't worry about it, because there's there is the files that are already prepared in the Fusion resources, so you can literally download this file as it stands now. We blocked out the body last week. What we're going to do this week is I'm going to start to add some details. So these little cut lines on the center of the gonk, we'll cut those in. But I want to talk through a couple of things, because we covered sketches and we covered planes a little bit last time. So if you remember, what we did is we drew on the origin, which is these X, Y, and Z bit here. Because we always use sketches to create objects, one of the things within Fusion is you can also draw on any flat surface of the model. So as well as drawing on these backdrops and extruding a square or a shape, if you go into draw mode and select any of these planes, so if we wanted to put some detail on the side, what you can do is then draw something actually on that flat plane on the model. I'll show you what that does. So before, you only had 3 different aspects to be able to draw on. What we've done now, if you can see, is drawn a square actually on that plane, which means that if we then extract it, it comes out at the same angle as the plane of that body, if that makes sense. Why that's really useful is when you want to start to add greebles, details, things like that, what you can then do is start sketching these on the body. So I'll just quickly show you. So if you're doing a panel, for example, like that, what you can actually do then is you can pull that in a little bit and you'll actually create the panel. So being able to sketch on different planes is really, really useful. If that all makes sense. We're not going to do that on ours, but I just want to give a couple of concepts on the sketches and planes. The one thing about planes is you can only sketch on a flat plane. So if you've got I'll just quickly create a cylinder. If you've got a cylinder, just create a cylinder, there we go. If you've got a cylinder and you go into sketch mode, you can't select the rounded side of that cylinder. You can only select the flat planes, if that makes sense. So sketching only works in 2 dimensions. So we've got to be a little bit creative when we start to get into round objects. Right, let me just undo that and get back to where we were. So that's a little bit around planes. The other feature that you've got on here is under construct, you can actually create planes at different angles or offset planes. So as well as your X, Y, and Z plane that we drew on last time, and be able to draw any flat surface, under construct, there's lots of different ways of creating planes in different angles and different spaces. So for example, one of my ones that I use a lot is a plane through 3 points. So if you select 3 points on the model, maybe that corner, and that corner, you'll actually create a flat plane across those 3 points. It's really, really handy that for trying to get sketches or objects that, at different angles. As long as you can get 3 points there, you'll actually get something that kind of works. I tend to use the 3-point ones for when I'm doing details on a dome or on a rounded surface, because I can create 3 points on that rounded surface to be able to get a flat plane that will be be at the right kind of angle. And then there's quite a lot on there being able to create. You can create mid planes. So if I wanted to create a plane that cut this exactly in half, I could select the top and the bottom plane. And what it just does is it will create a plane that's exactly in the center. So there's a few little useful ones on there. So all I really want to say is your 3 planes that we drew on last time, there's times when you might want to use these, and there's also times when you might want to create your own planes to draw on. Right, so what we'll do first of all is, if you see on the center of the gonk, we're going to now cut that section out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to realign the model to the side view of that picture. So I'm going to just move it. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. So it says 90 degrees. I'm going to go back to front view, and then I'm just going to drag it across so that it sits over the sketch model that we did last time. There we go. Get it approximately right. There we go. Okay, so now again I can use that the canvas that we imported last time as a reference. And I'm going to do exactly the same as we did last time. So I'm going to go into sketch mode. I'm going to select this plane as a sketch mode. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop this section out. And the way I'll do that is I'll create lines. I think this is actually in the center. So remember last time we used create project, and we can project just the edge of that line. What that does, it brings the model, the very edge of there, as a line into our sketch. And the reason that's useful, now I've actually got to draw a line, is if I just press L or go into line, I can move it along and it'll actually find the center point of that line. So I tend to work off the snap twos and center points because that's where you get accurate models. If you just try sketching around the, an imported image, it might not be exactly in the center. And I like using center points and then mirrors as we did last time to get accuracy. So I'm just going to draw a straight line down the center.
Can you show us how you moved it again?
Say again, sorry?
Can you show us how you moved it again, how you rotated it 90 degrees and moved it over to the side view model? Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I did is, there's your model. If you click on your model, you can right click on your model and you've got move or copy. So if you click move, you get this little control there which allows you to move it around a bit, and the circle will allow you to rotate it 90 degrees. So the first thing I did was rotate it 90 degrees. I'm rotating it back now. The student doing the reverse.
Move or copy or move to group.
No, I know how to move it. I just don't know if I need to be on a certain plane to do it because it's rotating it the wrong direction. It's going sideways.
Okay. So if you can see this this circle that I've got here, it's this is in 3 dimensions. So you've got a circle that will rotate it in the whatever that is. Is that the Y? Yeah, rotating the Y. You've got rotation in the X, and you've got rotation in the Z, or whichever way it is. So the 3, if I do that, it will turn it like that.
Kind of reminds me of 1, 2, 3D.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. If you do that, it turns it that way. Let's get it back to 0.
This one?
So you've got to drag the right one. And I kind of did it instinctively then, but to spin it round from the top, you have to look at it from the top. Drop it round by 90 degrees. And then what I do then is I'll just press my shift and look at it then from the front.
Okay.
And then I can move it around a little bit to get it straight. You got it?
Thanks.
No problem. So move it into the right place. So I said the next thing I'm going to do now is sketch on this plane where the canvas is. So again, I went into sketch mode and I just highlighted that plane. And I'm going to click create, project, and I'm just going to project that top line. The reason for that is I want straight lines so I can find the center point. And then I'm going to go back into my line tool. I'm going to move it along to the center point, and I'm just going to drag it right the way down. That gives me a nice, clear center point for the model. And then what I'm going to do is we can see this rounded detail. I'm not going to make it rounded. I'm just going to make a square cut, so we can use a tool later which will round us off. So I get roughly where I want to go straight down, and then I'm going to take it down to the bottom to about there, and then I'm going to take it across at 90 degrees like that. So what we've drawn then is half of it, similar to what we did last time. And then I'm going to click on create and mirror. I'm going to highlight that one, press the shift key and highlight the second one, and then the mirror line is that center line, and I'm going to click OK. So if I hide the canvas and the bodies now, I'll show you what we sketched. So what we've done now is we've got that like little U shape, which is the cutout for that body. Okay. If anybody's got any questions, just throw them out there as we're going through. If none of it, if it's some of it doesn't make sense.
What are the little handles in the middle of that U?
The little handles in the middle, where's that?
Of the U, your mouse is right below them. The three. Well, that is a pair of them, but the ones in the middle of the mirror operation, further up.
Further up.
Mm.
Where's that?
It's in the middle of
Oh,
the U
those?
channel.
These things.
Yes, that. Well, yeah, you have it zoomed in on one.
So
Those are nodes, like
I have
vector
no idea.
nodes. Okay.
I have no idea. Actually, I've not seen them before. They are on each of the. They indicate that the sketch is constrained, so it's a fixed point.
Okay, so it's snap into a grid.
It effectively it means there's there's unconstrained sketches, and then there's constrained sketches. Constrained sketches means it's locked to a single point, which is what those little icons are. I don't worry about them too much because I tend to delete sketches once I've used them, so I don't necessarily work to that as a rule. Okay, so now we've got that. What we're going to do, as we did last time, is we're going to use them lines to actually cut the model. So I'm going to click modify. So I'm going to first of all come out with a sketch, finish sketch. I'm going to click modify and split body. This is what we did last time. I'm going to highlight the model as the body to split, and then the splitting tool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select that line. Now, when you've selected it, I don't know if you can see the splitting tool. It selected one half of that mirror. So what I can do then is I can select the second half of that mirror, and it'll now give me a U cut, if you can see that. So if I click OK, if you look in the bodies now, we've got two bodies. We've got this middle body, and then we've got the main body. So if I hide the main body, that's the piece that I've just cut out. The reason I'm going to do that is I'm actually going to now create that indent for that particular bit of detail. And again, the way I'm going to do that, I'll use the shift key to highlight multiple selections. I'm going to select that plane, that face, that face. I'm going to turn the model around and select that face. And then I'm actually going to use modify press pull. And what press pull does is once you've got a selected face, pull allows you to pull or push that particular model in or out. So the reason that that's useful is then if we look at that reference on against that model, they're inset very slightly. So what we're trying to do is match what's on there. Now, the challenge you've got is trying to drag this in and out when you're actually looking at the reference from the front can be sometimes difficult. So what you can do is get it roughly where you think it is, and then this measurement here, you can type this in. So it's at the moment it's 5.8. So if I put 4, I put 3, 3.5. So 3.5 is about right, minus 3.5 millimeters. And I click OK. And what that's given me now is it's given me that indent within that model. Okay.
Can you show that one more time, Michael? Just that how you used the second body, but how did you do the offset is the part that I missed.
Yeah, so I've cut the second body out, and what I'm doing is I'm highlighting the faces that I want to offset, and I'm using the shift key to highlight multiple faces like that. Once I've highlighted the multiple faces, I'm going to click on modify and something called press pull. And press pull allows me to pull or in or well, press or pull as it says really. So I can create that detail. Does that make sense?
It does. And then you were just adjusting the press pull to get the top to line up with the drawing. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. So I got it thereabouts, and then what I can do is type the measurements in. I'm going to put 3.5 millimeters in there, and it lines up then at 3.5, and then I'm going to click OK. So what press pull does is it does its best to be able to pull a shape out. So if I'll just quickly show you. If I take the side of this gonk here, I'm going to right click and select press pull. If you look at it, what it does, it tries to keep the angle as it presses in and out. Does that make sense? Now, if I've got a cylinder, for example, I'll quickly show you a cylinder. Just create a very quick cylinder. There we go. If I press pull on the curved side of the cylinder, press pull, what it does is it actually then makes that cylinder larger and smaller. So press pull will always try to keep the shape of what you're doing, but just pull a particular face in a different direction. It differs. Now, the other very, very similar tool to press pull is Extrude. What Extrude does, so if I use modify Extrude, if I can find it, sorry, it's under create Extrude. When you extrude something, it actually creates it as literally as a square object extruding from that flat place. So you can see the difference between press pull and extrude. So extrude will pull it out exactly square from the face. Press pull will actually keep the angle. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It does.
Oh, good. And you can use both of those. So if depending on whether you want so if you want the detail, what we just cut on here, I want it to be right through the model square. So hence I used press pull through that. If I'd have done the same thing using extrude, I'll just show you on one face. When I pushed it in, the extrusion would go down. So if I pulled it right through to the other side, it'd be an offset, if that makes sense. Whereas with press pull, it'll keep it level.
So relative to the origin, right?
Relative to the origin, yeah. So it's worth playing with the two, just so you can kind of get to see when it's appropriate to use either.
Makes sense.
Okay, right. So we've done that. Now, I said last time I used direct modeling, and it's very much like wood. I've cut a piece out. What I'm going to do now is glue that piece back in again. So I'm going to use modify combine. And this combines two objects back into one. So you can see I've got two bodies here. I'm going to select this as the main body. And then I'm just going to select that middle piece, click OK. And now it's a solid object again. So it's just one body, solid object. And when you start, playing around, particularly direct modeling, I tend to do this quite a bit, really, which is just combining stuff as we go through. Now, if you combine something and you think, hang on a minute, that actually looks like it should go a little bit lower down to here, what you can do is you can go in and highlight one area. I'm actually going to highlight the two, press pull, and I can now adjust those models, so I can still adjust any of those scales as I've gone through. The thing to remember is that if you're going to adjust something where you want it to be symmetrical, make sure that you select both sides. So if I wanted to just drag that down a little bit further, I think actually I'll pull it down to about there. I can do. And likewise, if I think that this gap needs to be wider, I can press the Shift key and select both of those, press pull, and I can make that gap a little bit wider as well, or narrow. So you can adjust things as you kind of go through once you put it in there. Okay.
Michael, maybe it's just me thinking ahead, but if we have this slot that's in the top and the repeated slot that's in the bottom,
yeah,
what would have stopped us from drawing a line across the center of the gonk? And after we mirrored from left and right to get the top cut, mirroring it from top to bottom, so we have the same cut on the bottom of the Gonk Droid, and doing the push-pull to do both slots at the same time.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, absolutely. So what we'll do now is the challenge with it is we've got a reference diagram. So when I mirror this may not fit up this exactly, but I can use push pull if I wanted to then to correct it. So we'll do that now. So we've got that second one there to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a line, go into sketch mode. I've brought that sketch that we've had. I've turned the little eye on so we can actually see that. I'm going to choose somewhere where I think roughly in the middle of the model, out there, and I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to use that line as a mirror line, so tick OK. And then what I'm going to do is create mirror. This is what you were saying. So I'm going to mirror that line, that line, that line, and that line. So I've now got that same U shape, but I'm going to use this line I've just drawn as the actual mirror line. And if I just hide the canvas for a second, you can see now what it's done is it's created that second line at the bottom. Click OK. And now I've actually got that as on my sketch. As you said, if I bring the canvas back, we look in there, we can see that that's now slightly off depth wise, but it doesn't matter because we can always use push pull to correct it. So I've created that bottom line. I'm going to click modify. I'm going to come out of sketch mode first, modify, split body, select the body again. And I'm just going to do exactly what we did last time, which is select those two. And that line, that's now created that U cut, click OK. And I've now got the same cutout. Now at this stage, we said last time we'd pulled these in about 3.5 mils, so we can actually type that in if we want to get the same depth as the top one, so it's consistent. So again, Shift key, highlight the three faces, right click and press pull, and then minus 3.5 mil, and click OK. And now that's given me the same depth as the one above it. And then,
if you could you quickly go over how to sketch on surface again? F360 just came back up for me.
okay, so this is
I mean, I got all the push pull stuff. I was listening to that, but
okay. So you've got your create sketch button. Which
Okay,
is
so it's
just
right next to solid.
right next
so
to solid,
underneath-
yeah.
Okay, create sketch.
And then you
Alright.
select your face. So it's create
So it
sketch.
has to be a face, not a line.
It has to be a face. So
Okay,
I selected the ones actually on the origin because we want perfectly square with the actual canvas that we've done.
okay, so not the face of the gonk, but the origin.
That's right. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
let me back out here.
If you select the face of the gonk, your sketch will be at a slight angle, which means when you try to cut
Right.
everything will be off.
Okay,
Which is
Like-
exactly what I just did wrong.
Yeah.
it's like planar
So-
face. Okay. All right.
And that's
And
what we're doing.
then-
We're learning
And
stuff.
then executing a line. Nope. Okay. It's still like I have the sketch palette up. And all right, so how do you select the planar face? Let's
So
because mine's
on the-
highlighting, but
have
yours is
you got the little eye next to origin?
little eye. Yes, I can see the origin.
You can see the origin. So
Yes.
all you do is click on create sketch, and then you just hover your mouse over those 3 orange
Okay.
squares. Select the one that you want. So the face that you want is this face here,
And then it's dragging me to it. Yes.
and then it should put you straight on looking at that face,
All right.
and then you can just go into line
Tool.
tool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Now I have it. So 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's wanting to go square. Okay, good. And do we close this this polygon?
We're using it as a cut tool, so all we need is that U shape.
Okay, so then just finish sketch and then let it go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you can use that as a cut tool.
All right, thank you.
No problem. Okay, so we're in the same position here. We've got the body and we've got a piece that we've cut out. So we're all going to do again is glue them together, which is modify, combine. I like that one and that one, and click OK. So now we've got a solid body that looks like a gonk. Hopefully that makes sense so far. Right, what we'll
Hey,
do
Michael.
now. Sorry, go on.
Hey, Michael, just real quick, how do you uncombine a body, or is there a Control Z to undo?
Yeah, just at the top near the where you've got file and save, you've got the undo button.
Okay, all right,
You got it there, yeah.
okay, thanks.
Okay, so what we'll do now is probably put some curves on it so that rather than it being a square, we'll start to introduce the little curves that we've got in the body. Okay. So I'm just going to tidy up. I'm going to delete the sketches. So to introduce curves, if you move your mouse around your body of the thing you've created and you actually click on an edge, the edge will highlight. And again, if you go into modify, you've got fillet and you've got chamfer. So the difference between those is fillet is rounded and chamfered is just chopped off like at a 45-degree angle. So if I do a chamfer on there, I'll show you what it does is it chops it in like that. Okay. And if I highlight that and do a fillet, it rounds it off like that. So that's the difference between chamfer and fillet. Now, when we're going to do a model like this, what you've got to do is think about all the different ones or the different edges that you want to chamfer and or fillet, and tend to do them all in one go. So again, pressing the shift key so you can multiple select and select. You can select 4 edges like that, for example, and go on to modify, fillet, and then I can then fillet those 4 edges at once. So you start to get around the round edge, if that makes sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press my shift key. I'm going to actually highlight all these top edges here. 1, 2, 3. That one, that one. I'm going to select that, 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 and that one. So, oops, anyway. So if you can see the blue lines now, all the edges are now highlighted. I'm going to click on Modify, Fillet, and then it'll give me a little arrow on one of the edges there. If I drag that in, it starts to, as you can see, fillet the edges like that. Now, I realized I'd like to also add these two. So again, I can press Shift key, and on the other side, we'll add those two again with the Shift key held and the Shift key held. There we go. And then I'll look at it at the front for reference. And what I'm going to do now is drag it in. Now you'll see that if you drag it too far, you'll get a little error in the corner which says that the fillet can't be created or the chamfer can't be created that size, because you've actually gone beyond the limits of the fillet tool. And the limits are, so if you look at here, you can fillet with this flat piece in the middle. You can fillet it, continue, and then once those two touch, it goes beyond the capability of the fillet tool. So fillet's very useful, but it has got some limits when you go beyond what the dimensions are of the actual model that you've created. So I'm going to drag it in and say I'll get away with maybe, let's try 3. I'll try typing 3. So I've got 3, which gives me a nice round fillet. And the reason I'm typing 3 in as opposed to dragging it is I want to replicate that same fillet on the bottom then, so I'll get evenness. So I'll click OK on that. So now what you get is you get more of the gonk shape. And then what I'm going to do is repeat on this side. So hold the Shift key and then just highlight all the edges that you want to fillet. That, spin it round. That one, that one, that one. It's not my favorite bit, this, because if you don't hold the Shift key down properly, sometimes I'll reset and you've got to do the damn thing again, which is a bit annoying. But yep, so I've got most of them. And then modify, fillet, and I'm going to use 3 as the fillet, like I did last time. I just typed in 3, clicked OK, and there we go. So I've now got the gonk with the rounded edges.
Shut up.
Okay.
Really, dogs? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I wasn't on mute. Oops.
Dogs bark more if you say shut up.
Yeah. So Mike, I'm getting like the rounded edges on the box. How are you getting the curve at the bottom of the inset? Yeah, there.
There, yeah. So that's, if I just undo, that's selecting these 2 inner lines here.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. That's the one I missed.
So that's to say you may miss lines. The problem is if you then go and try and fillet lines afterwards, it gets a bit complicated because it's trying to fillet on top of existing filleted lines. So you really want to do all the fillets in one go. That's where that comes from.
So let me ask you one question. So if, say for instance, at the bottom of the curve, if you wanted to be that less rounded, would you go ahead and then maybe do those fillets separately, and maybe instead of 3, maybe a 2.5 or something like that, if that's what your design was?
Yes.
Does that make sense?
You can do fillets independently, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, because I'm, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so what we'll probably do is we'll put some fillets on these corners as well. So again, what we do is we just highlight the corners, but we might want a slightly different fillet on those.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, I just was wondering because trying to think ahead to maybe something else that I might do in the future. So, all right, thanks.
So you've got different controls. The thing with fillets is if all of your edges are joined together, so it's a cube, or it's where they come together on a corner like this, it's probably better if you do all the fillets together. If you've actually got independent ones like these two corner ones, you can do them again at a later date.
Yeah, I could see it where it'd be very very helpful. I'm looking at the foot itself because I actually printed the mini Gonk and I'm working on it. But yeah, you could just all the fillets all at one time. It'd be very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, thanks.
So what I'm going to do now is I'll just put a little bit of a fillet on those corners. I'm going to highlight all of those, right click and fillet, and then I'm just going to pull it in. I want to take just a bit of a top view just to see how that fillet looks, because obviously that'd be too much. So that looks about right. That looks about okay. And then I'm going to click OK. So you can see now we've kind of we've modeled the basic body, if you like, of the Gonk. Any questions at this point? Good. Silence is good. I think we all understand, and we're doing well.
We were told to shut up, Michael, just now, so that's probably quiet.
No, that's just you, Mark. That was all.
All right.
Hey, Michael.
Thanks.
Michael, one question.
Yeah, go for it.
Can you label, like, body 16? Can you rename that to whatever part you're working on?
You can indeed, yeah. So as you start to build more complex models, if you just highlight it and click on it again, it will turn it into a rename. So I call that the Gonk body.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah. Or you can right click and rename. Now, while we're on there, I'll just take you through this. So you've got your bodies. As you start to build more complex models, what you might want to do is create groups. So I'm going to click new group on there, and I'm just going to call that the body. And then what I can do is that's just like a folder, so like a file structure, folder structure. Just going to drag that Gonk body and drop it into that folder. The advantage of that is that I can then make the whole body disappear. So, for example, the Sandcrawler with the 90 parts that it's got for the tracks, I've got one folder that says tracks, and it means if I want to remove 90 parts, I can just click on there and then 90 parts disappear and I can see the rest of the model. So the folder structure is quite useful, and then naming it into something that makes sense to you makes a lot of sense, really.
Will that help for organizing, like when you're going to export it to like an STL, so you have a group of STLs? Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, that's most of the folder structure that I've got in the OneDrive for the models is mirrored on the folder structure in Fusion. So I organize it in this, and then when it comes to exporting, I just think, hey, just now, export that whole set that sits under the body or whatever.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Right. So we've got the kind of the Gonk shape now. The next thing that we would do is we can add details on the outside, which, as you can see, is all the greebles. But once we get to this shape, what I tend to start thinking about is actually hollowing out the inside of the Gonk. Now, just looking at this, I've noticed there's a little bit of a mistake here, which you see what's happened is that when I've rounded off that corner, I've not rounded off the middle indent. So it's given me this on the edge. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There's there's different ways of fixing. I could just undo it if I wanted to. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to drag this bit in here, and I'll show you. This is how I would fix it. So I'm going to click Modify Split Body. I'm going to highlight the body, and it'll ask me for the splitting tool. Now, normally, before we've looked at sketches as splitting tools, you can actually use faces. So I'll click on splitting tool, and I'm just going to click on this face here, And what that will do is it'll chop that top half off using that face as a splitting tool. So I'll show you why we're doing this. And then I'm going to use modify split body. I'm going to do the same on the bottom. And what that does, it splits the gonk body into three then. So I've got the main gonk body, I've got the lower part, and then I've got this little bit that's sandwiched in the middle. Now that that's a separate body, I can actually highlight these corners here. 1, 2, them little tiny corners there. 3 and 4. Press pull, like we've done before, and I can then pull them back in. So I can bring them in a little bit like that. And click OK. So now if I just highlight the top one, I'll show you the shape we've got. Top. Yep. So you can see now it's rounded that off to the same angle as this one, as I pulled it in and out. The other way that I could do that when I've cut it is I can actually highlight these, and a really useful thing on Fusion is you hit the delete key. What the delete key does is it does the best thing that it can guess that you're trying to do. So if I hit delete key on these, it actually takes the curve off completely. So I'm just highlighting these little pieces here. It press the delete key. What it does the best correction it can do, which is thinks, you know what, it doesn't want that curve. And then what I'm going to do is highlight the 4 edges, and I'm going to create a fillet again. So fillet, and then I can refillet them in as we did do previously. The reason I've done that is when we did it before, it was kind of following that same curve, but as I brought it further in, it actually just snapped out and went, no, you can't take it to that angle, because I was using this as a reference. So by deleting those and pulling it back, it means I can choose the angle that I want. So I'll click it out there, click OK. And now I'm happy with that. And I can bring that one back in. The reason that I cut it is if I didn't cut it, I'll just whiz it right the way back to, if I didn't cut it and I just pulled these back, I'm actually pulling the details of the edge back as well. So I needed to use this section as a separate body. So I often do that is I'll chop a body up so I can get access to something that I want to do, and then I'll reconstitute it. So I'll just quickly split this body again. I can select 2 faces at once to do a double split. And then I'll just delete those little edges and just redo it quickly. And this is, you know, it's like any application, there's a million ways of doing different things, but hopefully you get a sense of the kind of workflow that you can go through. There we go. Right, and then I'll just quickly chamfer those in. Chamfer, fillet, chamfer. I'll do. Okay. And then I'll modify combine. I'm just going to select those 3 again, click OK, and I'm back to the single body called Gonk body. Makes sense so far? Yeah. Cool. Brilliant. Definitely. Right, before we put any more details on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and hollow this out now. So at the moment, if I kind of look, you've got a section there called inspect. One of the very useful things is sectional analysis. What it does, it lets you select any part of the body, and you can literally drag it along to see a cross section of your model. So when you want to see what's going on inside, you can actually use that to look all the way through. So at the moment, if I was to print that out, that'd just be one solid body. Whereas you obviously want to hollow it out. You might want to add lights or LEDs or whatever in there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to split the body into the 3 parts that I had before. Okay. I'll show you why we're going to do that now. So the 3 parts are this top one. So imagine these are like storage containers now, which is, I guess, what this thing was made out of in the first instance. And that one. And what I've got now is I've got this storage container, but it's solid. So to hollow out a body, if you highlight a flat surface like this one, and you click Modify Shell, what the shell does is it will actually allow you to tell it what thickness of wall you want. So I've just collected 2, which is 2 millimeters. And what it's done then is it's actually shelled out the whole thing with a 2 millimeter thick shell. I'm going to try 3, try 4. So as you can see, 5, 6. So as you go higher, you get thicker body. Now, why it's probably important to shell at this point is the more outside detail you get, it still tries to shell around that detail. So what tends to happen is when you start adding greebles and details on the outside and you try to shell, it will sometimes come up with an error. So I tend to shell fairly early on. So I'm going to go for a 3 mil body on this one. So that's the 3 millimeter thick shell. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on bring back the top set of the container. I'm just going to repeat that, modify shell, modify shell, highlight that 3 mil, click OK.
Is a 3 millimeter thickness a typical thickness that you use for most of your stuff, Michael, or does it just vary depending on the object?
It varies depending on the objects, depending on the strength that you want and what you're actually going to put through it. Because this is a fairly small model, it's kind of what they'll scale it out. I think they scaled it at the Hot Toys sort of scale. 3 mil will be fine. If on domes I use 6 mil, just because the skins of R2 and whatever, 6 mil gives you a good solid body. But sometimes what you might want to do, like the Sandcrawler, I might want to put bolts through to allow me to bolt 2 pieces together. So I might do 7 or 8 mil depending on the thickness. Well, typically 6 mil is sort of my go-to on the big stuff and 3 mil on the small stuff. You've got to think with, sorry?
I said that's good to know.
Yeah, and this is kind of, it's worth experimenting. That your nozzle, your typical nozzle is 0.4 mil. So if you're doing 3 outer walls, that's 1.2 millimeter as a wall. So on a 3 millimeter wall, you'll have 1.2, 1.2, which is 2.4, which means you'll have a 0.6 mil gap in between those when it's drawing. So and walls, when I'm printing walls, a 3 wall thickness, which is 1.2 mil, gives you a chance to sand it a little bit without worrying about breaking through, and it tends to give a good solid print. So by working on the 3 mil, I know I can get the 2 walls with a little bit of a gap in between. If that kind of makes sense. And that's the other part of consideration, is when you're designing these things, you're also thinking about how you're going to print them. So if I take this, what we've got at the moment, I'm kind of thinking, well, I know that this here is an overhang. So if I print this flat, that's just going to give you a bit of spaghetti underneath that. I know that if I'm printing this flat, I'm going to get a bit of spaghetti there. I can't print it this way up because this comes straight out, so that won't work. So you're kind of also thinking about how you best model it so that you start to be able to print without supports. Of course, if you're using supports, it doesn't matter. You can kind of happily do whatever you need to do. You can also, you know, also considering bridging. So 63 mil, I'd take a chance on that 6 centimeter bridge. It's not too bad. So my assumption is that this top part here will bridge quite nicely. My worry points are probably these things here and this bottom piece here. The bottom piece is easily fixed. What I can do is I can pull that out so it's level. And so if I right click on that, press pull, I'm going to pull it out. What I tend to do with these is rather than trying to get it exactly right, I'll pull it past like that, modify split body, and then just retrim it using this as a reference. And then this bit that's stuck out, just delete it. So now I know that when I print it this way up, that will print fine because there isn't any overhang. These overhangs here, what I would do is I highlight this edge, oops, highlight this edge, this edge, and this edge. What I'm going to do on that is use a chamfer to see how that works, like that. Pull it out to whatever that'll be, 3.4 probably. Click. Right, you can get a little bit more on there. Click OK. So what that means then is as it's printing up here, it's only printing this out at 45-degree angle, so you don't need any supports. Whereas if you printed it on this side, this is printing piece straight out into thin air, which means it just dropped somewhere. And we don't like support, so we'll do the same on this side. Chamfer. Again, if you want to match perfectly, you can type the numbers in. I'll do a little bit of both. What I tend to do actually is just kind of get it near as I can do by eye, click OK, and then you can actually delete these. So it sort of tidies it up. But does that make sense? Sorry?
That's very cool.
Yeah. So what I've done now is I've fixed this now so that I know this will print. So I know it'll print. There's no overhangs. It's going to print these at 45. Once it gets up the top, it's just going to bridge. It'll bridge those. It'll be a bit messy underneath, but your top will be clean, and I'll end up with a clean print.
See, and sometimes what I catch myself doing is I get this far in the model and then I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to print this? A, without using support, and the easiest way possible. And I catch myself cutting it into like ridiculously stupid pieces to try to print it and then put it back together instead of like what you're showing of modifying the model to make it need non-supports.
Yeah.
Instead of, you know, cutting it up into pieces to print.
So, you know, and if you can keep thinking about that as you go through, I mean, from experience, so if you're printing, I mean, a 45-degree angle on the inside will give you a really clean print, without a doubt. But you can actually get down to about a 20-degree angle. So I can get down to, I can print that as an overhang. Now that'll give you a messy-ish print, but it will print reliably as an overhang. So as something that's inside the model that you wouldn't see, that would work fine. So if my model's kind of got, and I did these for the little bread pans in R2D2, where what you actually got is the model comes out and you've got this flat bit, and then obviously that's where the bread pan is, the hole. So by using a 20-degree angle on that, I can still print that. It doesn't matter if it's a bit rough on the inside, it just means it's printing without any support. So you just got to get a little bit, if you've got it at the back of your mind that you're going to print these things, and you kind of do that little bit of problem solving as you go through, it can save you trouble later. Okay, so let's get back. So we've corrected this model now so it prints. What I'll do is while we're at it, I'll Finish sketch. I'll correct the other one again. So remember what I did, pulled that just above anywhere, it doesn't really matter because I'm going to trim it off. Modify split body. I'm going to chop the whole body using this as a reference, click OK, and then delete that bit. And then what I did is I have just applied a chamfer on these edges so that it wouldn't have an overhang like that. Chamfer. And this is all of this is the advantage of doing direct modeling, which is where I mentioned on the first one about turning the timeline off. It gets really complicated if you've got the timeline on when you're kind of doing little iterative steps, or you're just adding little bits and bats like we've been doing. So I'd always recommend that you do that. The other things to watch out for is if you put curved edges on the outside, when you shell it, it'll sometimes put curved edges on the inside. And curve edges on bridging on the inside is not good because your bridging has always got to be straight across at 90 at a perfectly 0 degree angle to the print base. So again, it's just kind of thinking about that as you go through. So what we've now got is our 2-part container, if you like, to the top and bottom, and then we've got this center part here that fits in between them. There's different ways, and again, thinking about printing, there's different ways that we can get all of this to line up and to glue up. But what I'll show you now is the first thing I want to do is take this big flat piece here, and I want to chop it so it's got the same hole in the middle as this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the, was that top of the bottom? I don't even know which, there we go. Yeah, right. I'm going to hide the top of the gonk. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a sketch on the top of here that lets me cut that hole in. So the way I'll do that is I'll click onto sketch mode and go on top of here. And then I'm going to use create and project, just like we did before, to project something from the model. So click on project, and I'm going to make sure I've got selected entities. Now, as well as referencing other lines, I think I mentioned last time, you can actually reference the model. So if I highlight that entire plane there, you can see it's actually picking that flat edge up on the inside. So I'll click OK. I'll highlight that, and I'll click OK. What it's actually done now is it's drawn that square, which would match up perfectly with the inside of the body. So what I can do then, if I finish sketch, is I can use that sketch that I've just done as a cutting tool. So modify split body, highlight this centerpiece. So there we go, highlight that. Just unselect that. So yeah, highlight just that centerpiece, and the splitting tool, I'm just going to use that little square inside there. So you can see it's now drawn me a little split, click OK. And so now it's cut out the middle of there. So if I highlight that, hit delete, what I get now is I get that middle section.
Gotcha.
So I can pull it. So that now fits on top of there. I can't, at this stage, I can't think of an easier way of actually printing this other than in 3 parts. I could apply bevels on this face here. So, but again, I'd be detracting from the model a little bit. So what I'm thinking is actually I'd leave it just as these 3 parts. I think that'd work fine. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Michael. So question. So when you were like in the first class, we were projecting from the backdrop or the blueprint. This time you're projecting from the bottom surface of the bottom shell, correct?
From this surface here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great.
Yeah. So with project, you can project both from another sketch, from but you can also project from a body. And projecting from a body is really, really useful.
No doubt.
So if if, for example, I wanted to add, you can see this little bar here. If I wanted to add a bar that matched this onto here, I could go into sketch mode very quickly. I could click create, project. I could just select that bar, click OK. What it's done in 3D space now is it's created that little bar that matches that one at the bottom. And then what I tend to do is just press and pull that down a little bit. And then I might just select those two end points there and pull those out so that they touch that. So it becomes part of that one. Hide the bottom one. And then I can modify, combine this one and this one together. Click OK, modify, split body, and use this face as a splitting body, and then remove that last little bit I've trimmed off. And then what I end up with is a piece across there that matches that one across the bottom. But I don't know any reason why I'd want to do it on this particular model, but just kind of show you how the project can be used.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Awesome. Yeah, thank you.
It is. It's really, really handy, to be honest. And likewise, if I want to get rid of this, I can actually press and pull that. I can pull it into oblivion, going past where it's supposed to go. Click OK, and it's gone again. So again, it's just trying different, trying different things and playing around with different things. Okay. Now, the other thing, what I'm thinking on this one is I'll perhaps put some filament pegs holes on each corner so that these things line up. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to go back into sketch mode. Actually, before I go into sketch mode, I'll show you. So what I want to do is I want to create about 2.1 millimeter hole in each corner that doesn't go right the way through this. It just goes to within a millimeter or so. We've got 4 mil to play, so about 3 millimeter deep, which will let me make those. I can then use filament pegs to align this when I print it. So what I'm going to do is hide that. So I just got this, and I'm going to use the construct tool, and I'm going to use the mid plane. I'll show you why. So I'll select this one and this one. When you select two sides, it actually creates a plane that you can draw on right in the middle. You can see there. Okay. The reason and I'll show you why I want to do that in a sec. And then what I'm going to do is on that plane, I'm going to go into sketch mode. I'm going to create, project this frame on there. And then what I'm going to do is in each corner, well, actually in one corner, I'll draw a 2.1 millimeter hole, which I'm going to use for filament. And then similar to what we've done before, if I get to the middle of the line where it snaps, I'm going to create a couple of mirror lines, one that way and one that way, which will enable me then to use the mirror tool to actually mirror that hole. One across that line, so there. So that creates a mirror. And then I'm going to do that once again, create mirror, which is that one and that one. And I'm going to select the other line I've just drawn like that. Okay. So if I hide the bodies now, you can see I've got 4, 1. I'm going to press the shift key to open these. 2, 3, 4. So I've got those like that. If I right click on those now, I can press pull on them, and I can actually create the pegs. Okay, so if I bring the bodies back, what's quite interesting is, I'm going to bring all the bodies back and I'll show you why, is when you press pull off a sketch and it goes into a solid object, it turns red, and that means it's actually cutting the solid object. So this is cutting a hole in there. Now I'm cutting directly from the center of that plane. However, I'm pulling it in one direction. If we look on here, you've got a few things that you can select on the extrude tab. One of them is direction. If I drop that one side and I make that symmetrical, it'll now, you see what it's done? It's now made that hole cut symmetrical. So what I've actually got is I've got the 4 circles that I've just selected. I've made them symmetrical. And all I'm going to do now is pull them until it goes through that side there. So you can see it's just cutting through there. And then I'm just going to pull it back a little bit like that, about 1 millimeter, just so that it's, when it prints, it can bridge that piece. And that's actually cut all 3 bodies. So if I click OK now, what that's actually done is it's given me peg holes in here for alignment. It's given me a peg hole in the lower part of the gonk body. And it's given me peg holes in the upper part of the gonk's body. So what I've got here now is something that I could print in 3 parts and glue together using those peg holes to align, if that makes sense. Okay.
Michael, most filament is 1.75
Yep.
typically. So how did you come up with the tolerance of 2.1 for the size of the hole? Is that just what's worked on for you in the past, or
it's what works, to be honest. What happens is when it's 3D printing and layers are squishing together, it'll typically come out at the sides between 0.1 and 0.2 millimeters. So on a hole that's 1.75, it could potentially reduce that by between 0.2 and 0.4. So if I do a 2.1 less 0.4 for the squish, I'll get something that's fairly comfortable for the filament.
so if I was doing a M3 screw, saying it's 2 1/4 diameter on the threaded part,
Yeah.
would I still want to use it at make that hole at 2 1/4, knowing that that screw's got to thread in, or would I actually make it larger?
Well,
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I use the M3 screws a lot to self-tap into plastic. And what I found is I use 2.8 mil. So I put it 0.2 mil the other way. So it's slightly smaller, which gives a really good self-tap within them holes. If I'm making the hole where I want the screw to go through comfortably, I make it at 3.6 mil. So I'll use 3.6 mil for the hole in the part that I'm on the outside, and 2.8 on what I'm actually screwing into, and then I get a good self-tap on that. So that's and it's just really tolerances. So if you've got 2 pieces of plastic that fit together like a dovetail or something like that, I typically use a 0.2 millimeter gap between the faces, so that it's a nice solid tight fit with a 0.2 millimeter gap. You can move between 0.2 and 0.35 when you're looking at plastic to plastic. So, and these are really ones that you kind of you build up by experience and just testing really. The challenge you've got is that every printer prints very slightly different in the way that it's squish, etc. So I tend to err on the side of slightly looser so that it works for everybody.
So Michael, there's other things as well with the printer. You have your flow rate and your E-steps and all that stuff has to be really dialed in to get accurate hole and peg dimensions.
Absolutely. And that's where, again, just through experience, I've got a bunch of tolerances that I tend to use. But you know, if you put a 10 mil part into a 10 mil gap, there's no prints I've seen where it just slots in. You would still always have a little bit of a tolerance for it to move in there. But as I said, between 0.2 to 0.35 is what I've seen on a number of 3D printing groups, and it tends to be what I use.
Judging by where you're at with this right now, do you think the one more session will cover it all, or it looks like you have a lot of small details to go through?
Yeah, we've got the gonk body now, so it'll print. I think there's a probably a session where we can cover most of the greebles. What we may do is cover that on. It may stretch out to a fourth one potentially. I think we'll see where we are at the end of the next one. We've done quite a lot. What we can do is effectively what I'll probably do is show you how to do one or two of these greebles, but I'm not going to do all of them, because once you've started to sketch on the front of something like this, and I've said, what you can do is create your front piece like this, and extrude out or extrude in, then you've got the basics. So what I'll probably do is show you how to do a couple of greebles on the front, and then we'll move on to doing the legs. There's the pipes we use to rotate rather than anything that you've done, so slightly different technique. The feet are quite similar to the body technique. So I think in the next session, we can probably get most of the techniques in place, and then what I might do is just do one as a final wrap up then for like questions and see where we're at.
Sounds good.
That's awesome.
I'm happy to run them, as many as needed, to be honest. And we're only covering the basics here just to do a static Gonk. I think, and we can then start to move on some of the more complex stuff if people are interested in it.
Oh, this is real important.
Yeah. Delete the sketches. So that's pretty much, I think, what we wanted to cover today. The one thing I didn't cover off last time was saving. So
yeah, need to know that.
That's always quite important. So if you click on File and Save, Fusion.
Oh, it is Control S. Good.
Yeah, or File Save As if you want to save as a different file name. Fusion by default uses a cloud-based save, so you save it to your account in the cloud. If you click File and Export, you can export it as a physical file on your desktop Fusion 360 file, 3D. And that's if you want to keep, as opposed to trust the cloud gods to make sure that none of your stuff disappears.
Yeah, I'm far more comfortable having them hard drive.
Yeah, I understand that. It's I'm kind of similar, but you've got those two options. So that's where we've got to save. I'll save this updated one on the in the folders, so you've got a copy of this if you want to grab this. But have a play with them, and hopefully that makes sense. Any questions, feedback, anything we've not covered?
So yeah, one last question. Judging by the picture, I don't remember, but I think that robot is really big. So what size do you intend this to be printed at?
Okay, so yeah, last time what we did is we took the canvas and we calibrated the canvas. So this is calibrated to hot toys. So the hot toys are what, 12 inches?
300?
Yeah, 300
Oh,
mil.
okay.
So yes. So the height of C3PO is 300 mil. So
can you use the inspect tool there and see how tall that Gonk is?
Yeah, I've just gone into sketch mode and I'm just drawing a line to draw a line. So it's 198 millimeters.
Oh wow, okay.
So that's on this side, but obviously you can calibrate your canvas to whatever size you wanted to, and anything that you've created, you've got modify scale, which allows you to resize it if you want to, so you can make things larger and smaller.
So do you remember if there were different sizes of these in the movies? Because I think in The Mandalorian they had one of these, and it was actually really big.
I think Gonks themselves have various sizes, and I've seen a double wide as well.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I mean, like there's like a 4-legged one now.
There's the one that had towards the end of the season. It was pretty. No, it was in Bad Batch. I'm sorry, Bad Batch.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I just measured the mini Gonk, the top shell, and it's at 150 millimeters. So the equivalent probably would be probably 300 for the mini Gonk. That's at 40% scale, I think. that what it is?
What kind of
Yeah,
print-
40%. Yeah,
Yeah.
the one.
Are these, do you think we would have to split those to be printed?
Split what, the minis?
This one that we're designing here.
No, this will print quite happily. 'Cause it's that's 83 millimeters.
That's
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
small, actually.
So that's 127. So that'll easily print on the 200 mil print bed, and you're
Right.
printing it in 3 parts, which is that one, and the this one in the middle.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah, thanks a lot.
So cool, excellent. Any more questions? We'll wrap up there, and I'll hopefully see you all next time.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Good session,
Thanks,
Mike.
guys.
Cheers.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank
Have a
you.
good
Thank
evening.
you.
Take care.
Stay safe, everybody.
Good, Mike.
Bye now.
Thanks, Mike.
See you next time.